Hey everybody, how's it going? This is going to be a book ramble video on Brotherhood of the Storm, but before I say that, I just want to real quick say, hope everybody who was affected by Superstorm Sandy is doing alright. They're calling it Superstorm, I don't know why we can't just call it Hurricane, but whatever. Um, Makes it sound more epic, I guess. But anyways, I was hit by it as well, and I was without power for 6 days, which is really nothing in comparison to how devastated some people were and still are. So I hope everybody else is doing well, recovering from that storm who was affected by it. And if you were also affected by that nor'easter that happened kind of a week after or so, I hope you're doing well with that also. That's just a little insult to injury there. Anyways, uh, Brotherhood of the Storm. There we go. This is from Black Library exclusively. It was a limited release book. Now, I enjoy the book, but I don't like the idea of a limited release book. It can work with figures or like special edition things that also have a regular edition, but for a novel, I don't like it. That idea. I hope it comes out as an audiobook or uh, an ebook later on. I really do, because I think it deserves to be out there for everybody to enjoy. I think anything that's a limited release book deserves to be like that. But I will say the process of buying a limited release book from Black Library was an enjoyable one. They keep up with you through the different steps of getting the autograph page signed and getting the book bound and all that. And they keep it in style so it says, the con says word, or instead of the con sending word, it'll say Battle Brother, stuff like that, which is cool and fancy, I guess. But also, it includes links to download wallpaper for your computer or concept images or an extended excerpt of the book, which is pretty cool. So I thought that was a nice touch. It kept you informed, and it wasn't just pre-order, okay, shipping confirmation. It actually kept you informed throughout the process, which was kind of cool. Anyways, Brotherhood of the Storm. It's a quick book, and it's about the Weisgar's Legion, which gets next to no play um, in the Horus Heresy books thus far. They're mentioned, I know, once, maybe twice in the entire Horus Heresy series, and very briefly. So having the Weisgars as their own little book, granted it's a short book, but it's still a book all their own, is very nice, and which is why I wish it wasn't a limited release book, because there are plenty of Weisgar fans who would love this. Um, so that being said, the Weisgar Legion during the Great Crusade is a legion we know very little about. Same thing with that Primarch. They're one of only a few legions that we really don't know too much about. Not because they're shady and mysterious like the Alpha Legion or the Dark Angels or whatnot, but because just nothing is written on them. So, this gives some very good insight. And I'm not going to give away any plot points, even though it was a limited release book. I'm not going to give away any plot spoilers, but I will talk about the Weisgar's Legion a little bit and things like that. So timeline-wise, I'm not sure when this takes place. It takes place on a planet called Chondax. They're fighting against some orcs. Basically, the final push is what this book takes place in. Final push against the orcs. But the timeline, I'm not sure, because I do believe they make reference to the Luna Wolves as the Luna Wolves in this book, and not Sons of Horus. Although it could be mistaken, maybe towards the end they did. But from what I remember from reading this book pretty recently, is that it's only Luna Wolves as a reference. Although I could just be mistaken myself, but anyways. So I'm not entirely sure. I think it's right at the cusp of the heresy, or maybe because the Weisgars operate on the edge of space and on the frontier, kind of isolated from news and stuff like that, maybe it is during the heresy, and they just don't know that they adopted the name Sons of Horus yet. Anyways, the Primarch Jahagadi or Jagahadi, or however you pronounce his name, I don't know, the Big Khan. We get to learn about him as well, and he's one of the Primarchs we know next to nothing about. Again, because nothing was really written on him, so we get a nice sense of knowledge at this point, and learning about their Primarch and the Legion. So I will go over that a little bit. The Weisgars love courtesy, and they're all about courtesy. And if you have a proper title and a proper name, let's say, they're gonna go by your full title. They're not just gonna call you, Joe Smith or Joe or let's say Guardsman or whatever it is. They're gonna go through your entire title and name properly to not give offense. and if you have a special weapon or like some type of war gear that's like a relic and handed down or something special about it, they're gonna want to know its name if it has one and its history as well. Likewise, um, they kind of expect people to know their titles properly and everything. So um, that's kind of cool. That's something that you wouldn't expect from them, I would say. If you know, at least I didn't expect that going into this book. They look savage, but they're really refined, as you know tend to get with Space Marines. But because it has scarification and their brutal nature of fighting with the quick, rapid assaults and all that, they they're often come across as savage to outsiders, but they hate being compared to the Space Wolves, which I find kind of funny. And with that being said, the White Scars basically we get more of the same in terms of their fighting style, which is maneuver warfare. They apply it to the expeditionary fleet, so they pretty much go on a whim where they wish to go, so they're not pinned down in a central location. They don't like being pinned down. Um, Another interesting thing is, it seems the battle brothers of the White Scar Legion who are not from Terra um, have a harder time speaking whatever Imperial Gothic, whatever it is, have a hard time speaking that. I don't want to say properly, but completely fluently. They got a heavy accent to it, which is an interesting kind of little quirk there, and it kind of makes them more human. And their nature of being courtesy and also like being able to just laugh and seem kind of good natured, but at the same time not sure if they're mocking you, makes them come across as more of a human type of legion than the Astartes of other legions. So that was kind of cool. And overall, you just get a good sense of the White Scar Legion and what they do and how they fight. The book's timeline is mostly on the planet Chondex, but a couple of times the book jumps back in time a little bit, but it's quite obvious when it does so. And that's pretty much that for a quick ramble on this book. Like I said, it's a quick read, and it gives some nice insight into Primarch and his legion that we know next to nothing about during the Great Crusade, because nothing has been written on them thus far, really. One last thing I will say is the Horus Heresy book from Forge World. You know, it has the army list for Space Marine legions in there, and it has certain war gear and certain squad designations in that book. It's nice to see that stuff working its way into novels being written, you know, during or after that fact. So Brotherhood of the Storm has mention of the Volcolite weaponry, mentions I think cataphractic Terminator armor, stuff like that. It goes above just bolter, power armor, plasma, power weapons, stuff like that, and it makes mention of like the Sky Hunter squadrons or things of that nature. So I thought that was pretty cool, and we're going to see that more so in the Horus Heresy books as they come along. And I like that because if you play the game or if you know the army list stuff for the Horus Heresy legions, it just kind of makes it that much easier to visualize certain things. Visualize a scene, for example. So I just like the fact that it kind of is more immersive that way if you want to think about it that way. But anyways, that's it. So Brotherhood of the Storm, I hope it comes out on an ebook or an audio drama for those of you who are fans of the White Scars but couldn't get your hand on the book. I've always found the White Scars interesting. They weren't that high up there for me, but this did make me like them a bit more than I used to. The idea of the quirks they give them and how they portray the White Scars Legion. So that's pretty much that, I guess. Thanks for sticking through this. It went a bit longer, but I thought it would by talking about Hurricane Sandy and talking about the nature of buying this book from Black Library. So thanks for sticking through it, and until next time, take it easy.